Welcome back to another episode of Trading Secrets. Today, we're talking all things aviation with the legendary Peter Weber, more commonly known by Bachelor Nation as Pilot Pete. Peter grew up in the aviation world with his father as a pilot and his mother as a flight attendant. They actually met on a United flight. Peter had been flying for several years with Compass Airlines and then Delta before deciding to go on Hannah Brown's season of The Bachelorette. And then after his time as The Bachelor, he returned to the aviation world in full circle. He's now living his dream with airline United Airlines, since he is one of the very few reality TV stars who's actually returned back to his career post-show. We can't wait to dive into all things. Aviation before the show after the show, how you came full circle back into your dream job. Pilot freaking Pete, thank you so much for being here, man.
What's going on,
Cheers!
Man?
We got
Cheers.
some hard seltzers here. It's good to do these things in person.
There we go. I love it, yeah. A little New York visit. Good to see you, man.
It's good to see you, too. It has been way too long. How's everything going?
Man, it's been awesome. Just living out here in New York has been incredible. Been here for about a year and a half now. Living with Dustin, Clay just moved in with us, so having a good time.
Got the Bachelor family right there.
Literally, yeah, Bachelor family. It's been awesome. Really enjoying it. I've been living the dream out, flying for United, based out of Newark here, and just got on my new airplane about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, and that's something I'm really stoked for. It's taking me all around the world, a lot of international flying. So, it's been great.
Okay, we're gonna get into all that, but I have to ask you, when you say that, you say my new airplane. Like, for someone that's like, what the hell does that mean? Like I did. What does that mean? Like my new airplane.
So when I got hired at United, every pilot flies one airplane.
Okay.
Some people think you fly multiple, but everyone has a type rating for a specific airplane. It takes about a month and a half of school and classroom work and then simulator training to get qualified.
Okay.
You get checked out, you get your type rating for whatever airplane it is. So I first got assigned the 737, the Boeing 737 for United as a new hire, and flew that for about, I would say, 9-10 months almost. And was able to, everything in the airline is run by seniority, so my seniority number was good enough to take an award for the 787, the Boeing 787. That's like the new flagship carrier aircraft, the wide body.
Okay.
And the biggest reason I did that was because my dad, he was retiring from United, and he flies it.
I remember this.
And
so you could have the last flight with him, right?
Exactly, yeah.
That is awesome. So when you say seniority, how long have you been, like, what's your seniority level and how did you get it?
Seniority is, so whenever your class date is given to you with an airline, for United, it's just based on age. So the oldest in the class, we had like 30 in our class. They're the most senior in that class, and I was like the second to most junior. That's just on age. And then as you move through your career, you keep that seniority number. So anyone that's hired, a day or later after you, you'll always be senior to them until you retire. And then anyone that's hired, obviously, a day or so, or more before you, will always be senior to you. And so everything is predicated off of seniority. Your what airplane you fly, your schedule, your vacation, your pay. It's all seniority.
But does that, so tell me a little bit about this then. If there's, how old are you?
30.
Okay, so you're 30. Suppose there's a 40-year-old that's in this class and has less training than you do. When you guys both graduate from the United class, technically he'll have more seniority in the airline industry ranking.
For every airline specifically has their own seniority system.
Got it.
So, and anyone that's getting hired, it's not like you're worried about, training levels or proficiency. Everyone's on a very high level. It's very competitive to get on with a major airline. So everyone has thousands of hours, whether it's from the military, previous airlines, regional airlines. Everyone's, they deserve to be there. But once you do have your number, anyone that comes, a day or so after, even if they're older, you're going to still be senior to them.
Got it. Okay, those are things I didn't know. I'm going to dive into more things I don't know about aviation. Before I do, I need to ask you about like current events. So when I think airplanes, I think aviation. There's two current things we got to talk about.
Okay.
The first thing is going to be more of a nicer story. The second one is the shit show and the travel issues I've had. I need to hear it from a pilot. I need the trading secrets.
Okay.
But before we do that, I just read the story about this pilot who was flying in a private plane. The pilot went unconscious.
Yeah,
and somehow this guy, incapacitated, this guy who has never flown a plane in his life, has no idea what to do in the cockpit, actually landed the plane.
Crazy,
Can you give me a scope of like, what is like the likelihood that when that guy takes over, he's actually going to land the plane? And what does it actually take to do it? Because part of me is like, well, shit, if he could do it, maybe we could all do it. And the other part of me is like,
it's making us look bad as pilots. Like, this job's not too hard.
I was just saying, the other part of me is like, that dude just struck lightning, and there's no way this plane should be around. What are your thoughts?
I mean, incredible story. I think the biggest thing is kudos to that ATC controller. So he was a CFI, a certified flight instructor, and had, I think he has about 1,200 hours. So, you know, good experience as a CFI, had experience in that.
Okay, CFI, what's that mean?
So certified flight instructor. That's
an ATF, is that the air traffic control guy?
ATC, air traffic control.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're not in the cockpit.
That's right. Yeah, no, I got to bring the lingo back. I know, my bad. I'll explain. There is so many acronyms in aviation, so you just
it's just natural. That's how you talk. It's your language. Yeah.
So this you know, whoever this was, I guess this guy had no experience, was able to, I mean, it's not too difficult, but was able to figure out how to control the radio and control the mic. And so when his pilot, when incapacitated, they obviously were on a proper frequency. They were probably getting flight following, or I don't think they're on a, there's VFR, this is kind of getting in the weeds here, but I think they're on like a simple flight, just, you know, flying on a nice day with no bad weather, and was able to talk to the controller. The controller had a lot of experience in that specific airplane that they were in, and that's when I say it's hats off to that guy. Without him, you know, I could have ended up really, really, you know, poorly. But he was able to just keep the guy calm. I'm sure he probably had some type of mock-up on a screen, so he could literally tell, you know, this guy where the control was, what to do, where to spin this, you know. They got him on radar quickly. I think they told him like to fly to the beach and like fly north or south, or just make a right turn or something. And then when they did that, they were able to pick him up on radar, so he could control him, and he knew exactly where his heading was, what his altitude was, and so he could walk him through every step to get that airplane on the ground safely. But still, I think that's, to be able to land an airplane with no experience, not understanding anything about aeronautic or aerodynamics or anything like that, getting into ground effect as you're getting close to the ground, it's impressive that this guy was able to do that and safely land that airplane with no experience.
I'm a numbers guy. I'm sure you had to do those like trainings and simulators before you got into a plane. I'm sure you crashed a couple. Give me odds. Like, when you hear that story, what do you think the odds are that he would have successfully landed it, knowing what you know?
I mean, that's like, I don't even know, I'd say 50-50, you know, just depending on the person. Like, to be a good pilot, you know, I always say being a pilot's not necessarily, it's not like very difficult. Like, if you put the work in, anybody I think can learn the proper procedures and learn the systems of an aircraft and understand regulations. But in my opinion, what differentiates a really good pilot, you're kind of like born with it. Like, if you're a good stick, your body just gets connected to the airplane in a way that you really can't ever teach. I don't know if that's making sense, but just a good pilot, a good stick, them and the airplane, they're one. They're not disconnected. Yeah. So this guy obviously had, you know, some skills that, you know, he probably should, you know, look into possibly getting his license or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, maybe, I don't know, 25% chance that someone with zero experience, you know, can stay calm, first off, not freak out, not pass out, and yeah, he did a good job.
Less than 25% chance. That's crazy. Also, you talking about the fact that you kind of just have to have that knack, and you have to have that like connection with the plane and really enjoying it, I think speaks directly to, I remember, I've told this story before, but when you got off the season, you and I talked a little bit about like business strategy next, and I'm like, hey, what's next? Like, you have a huge platform, your season, your ratings were out of control. I mean, we haven't seen ratings like since your season in a long time. And I was like, so Pete, it's all you, man. What are you going to do? And you're like, well, first and foremost, I want to go back to flying. That's my passion. So that's something that's been with you forever, and it sounds like it won't go away. And we'll talk about that. But before we do, I need to know, what the hell is going on? I just had my book tour, 8 cities, 8 days, 7 different states. I had more airport issues than I care to even talk about on the podcast.
Oh boy, I'm
sorry. It seems like everything is delayed. Now I go into like little conspiracy theories in my head. I'm like, well, you know what? Oil is now $112 a barrel. Maybe it's a pricing and profitability thing that they have to have full capacity, so they're delaying flights. You live in the commercial space. What's your take on? I would say my thought process is somewhat consistent with like the macros. What's your take as a pilot?
I mean, you're definitely seeing travel rebound like crazy right now.
That's
and
an interesting take, yeah.
it's super exciting. Obviously, being in the industry, everyone obviously struggled like crazy going through the pandemic, but the travel industry was, we almost, without the CARES Act, we would have, a lot of airlines would have gone under, and ceased to exist. But luckily, that's behind us, and forecasts for this summer are insane for travel demand. This is probably, I think, I've heard forecasts like this is going to be the busiest summer season ever in the history of the airlines, and that's during normal times. That's normal every summer. Usually, you always see an uptick from the previous summer, but just with the population growing. But yeah, unfortunately, there is a lot of there's a pilot shortage, and that's
okay. Something I didn't know.
Yeah, there's a pilot shortage, and that's we have so many pilots that are retiring. The FAA mandated retirement age is 65. So even if you wanted to stay longer, my dad just retired. April 21st was his 65th birthday, and so he had to have his last flight completed before then. And so you have this huge number of, I think like at United, it's every 18 hours or so you have a pilot retiring. And
wow.
it takes a long time to train a pilot, retrain a new pilot. It's a whole, it's like a waterfall, a compounding of effects where when one pilot leaves, now that seat's vacant. And now someone has to go fill that seat. But the person that's leaving their current seat to fill that seat, now that one has to get filled, and so on and so on and so on. And so when you have a huge training demand with pilots, it causes a lot of delays and shortages, and it's a good time to get into this career field if it's something you're interested in. But that's one of the reasons you're seeing a lot of cancellations and just staffing issues. And yeah, just demand though is insane. With that, stuff happens, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And airplanes have mechanicals. Every airline. It doesn't matter what airline you're on. I always kind of think it's funny when people complain about, I can't stand this airline for doing this, and they canceled the flight because there was a mechanical or there was weather. I'm like, that happens to literally every single airline. You can go to that airline and you'll have someone saying the same story. So, but I get it. People are loyal to their brand and their airline, and yeah, just insane demand coming that we haven't seen.
And so from the pilot, when we hear mechanical, when we hear it's delayed and we don't really know why, it's usually always what we're told. Like, is it always, if it's mechanical, it's mechanical. If it's delayed, like, will you guys take a flight off even if it's at half capacity and stuff? Like, does that?
Oh yeah. Okay. No, there's never any. No, nothing like that's happening. There's a thing called essential air service. So the government actually pays certain airlines to run routes, usually in areas that aren't, the population's not very high, but because we need to have connections from a small town just outside of Denver.
Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo, yeah. I mean, Buffalo is
it's pretty big, but like Syracuse maybe.
Yeah, so there's essential air service routes that in these remote parts of the country they need to have service. So even though the airplane may be, a lot of times they're flying empty just to get there, but the airline doesn't care because they're getting paid the same amount from the government to keep those routes going. But even that, you're seeing like SkyWest, I recently read, is they're not keeping up their contract with the government to fly these essential air service routes because they don't have the pilots to man the aircraft, because they're a regional airline. And think about it like baseball, like the minors and the majors. Okay. Every pilot is trying to get to the majors. A major airline, it's better pay, it's better airplanes, better routes, better quality of life. But it's a stepping stone. You got to kind of pay your dues and get experience to the regionals. And so these regionals are really struggling right now because they're getting poached left and right. People are leaving to the majors because they're having so many retirements, and so it's kind of sucking them dry, and they don't have enough pilots right now to fill in. So you're seeing a lot of cancellations on the regional front from just a manpower.
Interesting. Okay,
shortage.
So that makes so much more sense. What about, is that same employment issue the same with flight attendants right now?
I don't believe it's the exact same, no.
Okay.
I don't think so. Just because there's so much training that goes into, with the pilot, you have to have so many hours. You're not getting hired at a major airline without, I had about 4,000 hours total flight time, about 2,500 turbine. There's a lot that goes into having to do that. So I don't think it's the same right now with flight attendants.
Gotcha. And another current events thing is I saw that, I had no idea about this either, flight attendants aren't paid by the union, I guess, until the flight actually takes off.
So the doors are closed and the parking brake is released is when
That's when they start getting. Was that the same for pilots?
Pilots
too?
the same way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And now, isn't there a huge push to change that?
So, I agree. Of course, you're doing as a pilot, you're in the cockpit and you're programming. You're doing
your name tags on.
Yeah.
Your suit's on.
You walk out the jet bridge. I'm there at work. But yeah, you're doing honestly probably the most critical stuff there. You're programming the flight computer, getting all your numbers and your weight and balance. And technically, yeah, you're not paid during that time. But the aviation industry, like airlines, it's very different. Like, if I were to tell you like the pay rate of what a pilot gets, you would think, oh my God, that's huge, that's crazy. But it's not comparative to like a 40-hour work week, like the traditional job, 9 to 5. We work maybe, anywhere from like 73 to, you can't fly more than 100 hours in a month, but from 73 hours to like 85 hours is an average paycheck for a pilot in regards to how many hours you're going to get paid for.
So you guys are paid hourly.
Yeah.
And what is like a starting rate for a pilot at like a decent airline?
So it's, rates fluctuate like crazy. That's a big, a conversation with the unions thinking that, well, it's not a, pilot shortage, it's a situation with pay. If you pay more, there'll be no issue there, no shortage, the applicants will come.
Okay.
At a regional, it's tough. At a regional, you don't necessarily, make an insane living.
Give me what's a regional, like Spirit?
No, so regional is like, I flew for Compass.
Okay.
SkyWest, they're just, the regional airlines are the companies that the major airlines work with, and they outfit and fly a lot of the smaller routes for them.
Gotcha. So if I go to Buffalo, right, I'll
Yeah.
see on my thing, it'll say Delta.
Exactly. Or it'll say like
under
Delta
it says
Connection.
Delta Connection, WestJet, or like, I don't know, some other plane or something.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's still through Delta, but Delta will then outsource or work or contract with some regional plane
Exactly.
that's not owned by Delta.
Exactly.
And if that pilot's flying that flight, they're going to get paid less.
Yeah, so that's kind of a thing too. It's you have pilots doing the exact same job, but they fly the exact same, or not the exact same airplanes, but doing the exact same job, getting people safely from point A to point B. But you have one kind of field of miners that are paying a lot less. That's why everyone, for the most part, there are people that enjoy just because of quality of life. It makes sense for them to stay at a regional airline and never go to a major. Maybe they've been there for 10, 15 years. They've accrued a lot of seniority, so they're going to give that up now, go to the bottom of the list at another airline, wherever they were to go to. So it doesn't make sense for them to leave. And once you get, a couple, 10 years plus of seniority, you're making a decent living at a regional. It's just the beginning part. That's the toughest part. That's the stories you heard of, pilots having to, live in crash pads or not crash pads, like, live in the crew room because it's tough to afford a hotel room if you're commuting to work or whatnot. It's gotten better. Yeah. It's gotten a lot better. I was fortunate. I never had to go through the airlines kind of in that state.
Yeah.
And so that's really exciting to be able to say. But I would say like for a regional pilot, starting pay is probably like $35 an hour. And that's really good, right? But it's not like 40 hours a week again. It's times 73 or to 85.
I think the natural reaction when you hear that would be $35 an hour. And again, I know you totally put the business model together, but for a regional, even with consideration that seems low.
Yeah, totally.
So you agree with, like in general, like,
100%.
That's low for a pilot. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then as you move up and you move into like the big or international flights at like a Delta or United, are we talking double, triple that, quadruple? Like, are we talking hundreds of dollars an hour? Like, what ranges? Like,
yeah, I mean, to show like kind of the disparity, I would say, like the whole range spectrum. Lowest is, and all this stuff is, I have no problem talking about this because all this is public knowledge.
Hey, we're in New York City, and they I don't know if you heard this, they're going to, with all job postings, they're going to require salary ranges being put on the postings.
Oh.
So for all positions, all postings, like if it's an office manager, like minimum like 40, maximum 75, like salary transparency is like starting to blow up.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I love, what you do with your podcast and kind of getting rid of that taboo talking about money, but yeah, all this stuff's on all forums, so you can look up pay rates for airlines. But it goes anywhere from like I would say 35 to top pay rate right now for a maxed out senior captain for a major airline is around I think $355.
Okay, gotcha. So $355. I mean, look at it. It's like 10x, right?
Yeah.
I mean, from starting to being in the most senior position. A question I had for you, because when I thought regional, I was thinking Spirit. And I think about this, like when we talk a lot about the influencing space on this podcast. And one of the correlations we've seen is that if there are the bigger brands that are more desired to work for, those brands will actually pay less than a startup that has more liability and more risk. So the startups that have more liability that people haven't heard of, there's not as much demand to work there or to work with them. Therefore, they have to pay more.
And to attract
And if
them,
like a big Amazon or a Walmart, or you just did the Top Gun deal,
Yeah.
like they come to you, they know that they're going to get someone to show up to that red carpet at Top Gun,
Right.
so they have more leverage in negotiation.
Sure.
Does that theory apply to the airline industry? And where I'm going with that is, I'm going to say it, you don't have to say it, my inclination, United and Delta are the best airlines out there. And then there
Amen,
are
let's
other
go, baby.
airlines like, I know Southwest has a great reputation, good stock by the way.
Yeah.
I don't love Southwest, sorry. I know Spirit Airlines has a little bit of a
Spirit's
pretty
been
bad reputation.
climbing like crazy right now with all the JetBlue rumors.
Oh
Their
yeah,
stock's been booming.
Okay, so yeah, their stock's booming.
Yeah.
But I know like the reputation isn't
Right.
the best. JetBlue, you're right, their credibility has gone down lately. But do those airlines who have maybe more of a negative perception in the marketplace pay more because they know that pilots would rather be at like the top dog, the New York Yankees of airlines like Delta and United? Is that how it works?
No,
Or-
actually, it's the exact opposite.
Wow.
Yeah. So like the big three, United, Delta, American, we kind of call them like the big three airlines. All the other ones you're mentioning are still major airlines. They're not considered regionals, but they would maybe get classified in like a low-cost carrier type
Got
business
it.
model.
Okay.
They don't really necessarily offer the nice premium first-class service, the lie flat seats, the business class service, or the premium plus.
Sure.
It's more of kind of just economy seats throughout
Sure.
the entire airplane, and it's a great business model. They make a ton of money.
Killer.
But in regards to answering your question, no, you don't. The highest paid airlines are like the big three: United, Delta, American. They pay the most. And yeah, it's I guess if you want to. Reputation-wise, sure, everyone probably has their own opinion. Obviously, I'm biased. I love
Sure,
United. I think
sure.
it's the best airline ever. Super happy to fly there, but they also people want to fly there more than just for the money, but for the quality of life, the type of airlines. At Southwest, it's a great airline. You're going to fly a 737 for your entire career.
Yep.
United, you could fly a 73, a 78, 777, Airbus, 75, 76. You have so much variety, which then means so many more routes. You get the international experience. A 737 can't go, LA to Sydney. You're flying. That's a wide body flight.
Yeah.
You're not really going to Europe. So there's a lot of reasons other than just pay that these bigger airlines are maybe the more attractive airline to fly for most people. So that's a couple of the reasons.
It's funny because Caitlin, sometimes when I talk about finance or stocks, I try and break it down for her. I probably use jargon I shouldn't. The way you were just describing the 737, it's a triple bus. I was like, I'm looking at you the way Caitlin looks at me. I'm like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but I'm in for that. One thing I got to ask you though is what's interesting. I remember in business school I read this Harvard Business case study on Ryanair, and I think it goes to your point that you just said. Ryanair.
Yeah.
So you just said like. People have different perceptions of like what they want out of airlines, therefore different service. So I might have just said I don't like Southwest. I guarantee you there are people listening to this right now. They're like, dude, are you out of your mind? Southwest is the best airline out there. So that is out there. What's interesting is Ryanair has had the #1 customer satisfaction rate score of any company out there. This is so, I'm old. When I was in business school, it was like 2014.
Okay.
And the reason behind it though, and this was the European one, right?
Sure, yeah.
So if anyone doesn't know, it's extremely cheap. You can fly to different countries in Europe for a very, very affordable price. When I say that, I'm saying like 20, 30, 40 bucks.
Okay.
The reason that the customer service satisfaction score is so high is because the expectation of what the customer was getting when they flew was always at least met or exceeded because they knew through complete transparency that the expectation was pretty damn low. You are on this flight to get the cheapest ticket, and when you buy that flight, you know it.
Yeah.
If you go, and they said like small things, like if you go to the bathroom on the flight, you have to pay for it. You want
Do you
water
really?
on the flight,
That's
you have to pay
insane.
for it. So
That's
a crazy
insane.
model,
Yeah.
but a model
you know
that
what you're getting.
you know what you're getting. And so
Yeah.
that's an interesting concept.
It's funny you bring that up. One thing that I've noticed just hearing again, I mainly fly United obviously as a pilot all the time, but as a passenger, it's not always. I can jump seat on other airlines. We have reciprocal agreements to fly on them if there's open seats. But I guess that transparency thing is you hear a lot of like the low cost carriers. They sound great, super cheap, But a lot of people I've heard frustrations with where you get to the airport and then it's, well, this bag fee because you didn't buy it online
Sure.
the night before, it's, you're getting charged this. And then after everything's said and done, all the extra, fees, it's really not that much cheaper of a ticket.
Right.
And I've heard, people kind of get annoyed by that. So that makes sense with Ryanair having that high score if they were so transparent, because that doesn't maybe happen all the time.
Exactly. Interesting stuff. Now, I know there's some people here listening that just want to hear about Pilot Pete and the Bachelor stuff. We'll get to a little bit of that, but we're talking aviation now. For anyone that does travel, we have a pilot here that has thousands and thousands of hours. There's a lot of people out there that have travel anxiety.
Yeah.
Can you give us like turbulence? They freak out. I've heard the myth that like no plane's ever gone down from turbulence.
Right.
In general, do you have any tips or tricks for anyone that gets very anxious when it comes to traveling, or any information from the pilot himself that might be able to reduce some of their anxieties as they do fly?
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing I think is turbulence. People freak out.
Yeah.
And I totally also I think understand it's funny. Actually, I used to be pretty a nervous flyer when I was a little kid.
You did?
I did. And I always, the crazy thing is I always knew I wanted to be a pilot.
Huh.
And I was like, I have to find a way to get over this. Like, this is not good, but I still was obsessed with airplanes, but if we hit bumps, I was freaking out. And that eventually obviously faded. But the biggest thing is flying is the safest form of transportation. That's easy, easily proved. Statistically
Really?
speaking, you have a much higher chance of something happening to you on the way to the airport than anything ever happening on any flight. So trains, planes, whatever it is, buses, any boats, flying is the safest form. Airplanes nowadays are built with so much damn redundancy. You can have one system go out and it's no issue. You can have a second system go out and you still have a backup to that.
Wow.
So obviously as just a normal flyer, you don't understand these airplane systems, you don't understand really what's going on with the plane. You're not in control, so a lot of people probably have difficulty not being in control. But the redundant airplanes are just so safe nowadays, they're so modern. The wings on an airplane, when people see the wings shaking, I hear a lot of people freak out from that and from the bumps.
Yeah.
It's designed to do that. You don't want a rigid wing. If you had a rigid wing, it'd be susceptible to snapping. You want it to give. It's like a shock absorber. It's taking and absorbing those bumps that you're going through. And people ask about turbulence, and they, what is it? I think of it as you're driving down a bumpy road, and you don't freak out when you're in a car,
Sure.
in a Jeep, and you're moving all around, but because you're in the air and it's a little bit more foreign, you freak out. But it's the same thing as just going through down a bumpy road. Those wings are designed in testing to come within a couple feet, wingtip to wingtip of each other over the top of the fuselage before they snap.
Stop.
Yeah. So those
Wow, that's crazy.
The airplane's designed to withstand so much more than it could ever encounter in any type of flight that you're going to go on.
And I've heard a pilot say before, when you think of turbulence, you're breaking it down in simplicity. Think about it like when you're in a boat and another boat drives by, or a jet ski, and a little wave comes, and obviously the boat moves with the wave.
Wake turbulence.
Yeah, your boat's not ever sinking
Right.
from another boat coming on or something like that. Do you find that comparable? Is that a fair comparison?
Very fair.
Yeah.
Wake turbulence. So as the airplane flies through the air,
Yeah.
there's wingtip vortices that come off the edge of the wing. That's just produced by lift, and those can create a lot of turbulence. It can be an aggressive, kind of violent feeling if you fly right into some wake turbulence.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have separation, minimums, where when you're flying, you're within, you're never getting within a certain amount of miles next to that airplane if you're on the same altitude level. We're always separated by at least 1,000 feet vertically, and it's a big thing that we pay attention to low to the ground. You never want to fly into any type of wake turbulence low to the ground, because that has the ability to kind of turn a plane over. So pilots are trained to avoid that. ATC's trained to keep airplanes separated at a safe distance, and but yeah, it's a great example of wake turbulence.
If anyone has any form of flying anxiety, this podcast at the very least should definitely put those anxieties to rest. I mean, there's so much information there I didn't even know. One of the anxieties that won't go to rest is when I see the Denzel movie Flight, right? I mean, that's based on a true story, right? Denzel's hammered, but he's an alcoholic, so he's a good pilot when he's hammered. You're a single guy, you like to go have fun. How, when you're partying and stuff, do you have to plan out, like, it has to be like 72 hours before a flight? Like, a week, like, how long before a flight are you thinking about, like, I can let loose tonight or I can't? Like, how does that work?
So, I don't think that was based on a true story.
Oh, it wasn't?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Fact check right there. I
yeah.
had no idea. I just remember it. You're right. It's a drama thriller. Oh, is it on a true story? Let's see.
I don't know if it was based off of a person, but like the actual
It
flying
does say.
scenes.
This is Google. It says it's based on a true story of airline pilot William Whittaker. In the recap,
Oh,
guys,
really?
here's what we're going to do.
Oh,
This is what I always do when I have conversations like this. I don't know for sure.
Okay.
In the recap, I'm going to do like a full deep dive in the research. We'll get back to you. Stay tuned, and I'll let you know, like, if it's based on a true story, but it's got the Hollywood bullshit. We'll give you the rundown there. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
But for you, like, when you, like, if you're going out and stuff, how
Sure.
forward do you have to think about, like,
Yeah.
I fly Sunday, I shouldn't go out Saturday type thing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, being the ultimate professional in this kind of profession is a must. There's no wiggle room. For that movie, obviously, it was unfortunate. It gave pilots a bad rap, but that stuff does not fly. No pun intended with this profession. We have very strict policies of, for instance, alcohol drinking. Minimum bottle to throttle for most airlines is 12 hours. Your last drink before reporting to any type of duty has to be completely clean of any drinking. Obviously, no drugs. But other than that, it's just like I said, this profession demands perfection.
Of course.
You can't
No room for error.
you can't mess up.
Yeah.
And you mess up, people die. So
That's crazy.
we take it very, very seriously to be that ultimate professional and never mix the two. Yes, when you're on a layover, you enjoy yourself and you can go have a good time, explore, have a good time with the crew. But when it comes time to work, it's business, and there's no messing around with that.
Gotcha. Is there ever, and this is my last question on the industry, I'm just so fascinated and intrigued, what is, like, how many flights can you fly in a row before they're like, you have to take a break? Like union, like how, like from a endurance standpoint?
Yeah, we can't fly more than 100 hours of flight time in a month, in a 30-day rolling kind of calendar month. You need a 30-hour break from flying in every 7 days. So as you look back, you need at least 30 hours off. That could be on a layover. I was just at Tel Aviv. It was a 44-hour layover. So technically that reset my clock.
That's so cool, by the way.
Tel Aviv was awesome.
Tel Aviv, wow.
Yeah, I'd never been there. It was the 7-8. I'm stoked on it because I was in Amsterdam 2 or 3 days ago. Going to Athens tomorrow. It takes you to really, really cool parts of the world. So
it's so cool.
It's a good time. But in regards to breaks too, we typically minimum days off is 12 or 13 days off in a month.
Okay.
Usually it's a little bit more. I would say typically you fly about half the month.
Okay.
And then when you get really senior, you're flying those really nice, efficient trips that have a lot of hours. So you're flying like a 30-hour, 32-hour, 4-day. So you're doing 3 trips. You're doing 2 of those and then maybe a shorter trip, and you're gone maybe 8 total days of the month. So you get a lot of time off once you get some seniority.
Interesting. Okay, I mean, sounds like a hell of a career track. So I have 2 questions left for you, and the last one's going to be, how can someone get into the career if they want to? But before I get there, I have a friend whose family has ownership in a plane.
Yeah.
And so I've got to experience this whole private plane world, and it's fucking crazy. It's absolutely
it's the
nuts.
same, man.
I know you've flown private before. This is a rumor we always talk about. Do you make more flying private or commercial, and why?
Yeah, everyone thinks it's private.
Yeah, that's what I would think. For sure.
Everyone would think that. They're kind of shocked when I tell them it's not the case. So the way it goes, private, actually, they kind of offer you, for the most part, a better starting entry pay.
Okay.
That's from my experience,
So
what I noticed.
more paid per hour then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, compared to like that $30, $35 range at a regional, for your first year, your probationary year as a starting corporate pilot, you could be making, like 60, 70, K a year starting out. And then it does get higher as you upgrade to captain, the amount of years of service you've had there. But ultimately, where you're going to make the most money is once you max out at a 12-year plus captain on a wide-body airplane for a major airline. That'll always, granted, there's probably a couple examples here and there of Fortune 500 company, flight department, and these guys are flying G650s for them and making stupid money. I'm sure there's a couple of those examples, but for the most part, you're going to see more money in the airline side.
Are those pilots on Do they work for are they unionized or no?
Corporate guys?
No, the private people. Like if you fly private, are you union?
No.
Okay.
No.
So if you work for like a Wheels Up or like one of these private airlines, they're paying you and you're not on union.
To be completely honest, I'm not exactly sure. Like with Wheels Up, I flew for a private, like an owner. So I flew for a guy who owned the airplane, and then so we operated that called, not to get too again in the weeds, but Part 91, which was just like him and his family, and then to offset some of the costs of owning that jet, hangar fees and all of that. It's very expensive, obviously, to maintain. He would charter it out via a 135 company, and so he would make money chartering out his jet.
Gotcha. So he has the jet, and then he'll charter it out to people, charge him a fee.
Exactly.
And then he'll make some money.
He makes some money,
and he's paying you directly then. So there's no union. You're working under his payment plan. Okay.
Yeah.
Understood. Got it. With you on that. Last question I have about private planes. I just want to give some people that don't have a damn clue. Give me estimate cost. If I want to take a plane, I don't know size and stuff, but like just like there's 4 of us. Let's just say it's 4 of us. I'm in New York City, and I want to go to Miami. New York City to Miami, one way. Give me an approximation of what that would cost on a private plane.
One way, let's see, because I don't, obviously know the exact price for that. But so they factor in though, very rarely you're going to get the one-way fee because that airplane needs to return back to its home base. So unless they can get, unless you can have a broker get a flight going back to New York with another client, they're most likely going to charge you the round trip. Like we would do LA Vegas all the time. That was like my biggest route when I first started out flying corporate, and that was about, I want to say, like 9 to 10K.
And that's a 20-minute flight.
Yeah, it's like 35, 40.
35-minute flight, and that's 10K.
Yeah.
So good. Miami to New York, I feel like that would be like 40-ish K.
Yeah, I would say around there. I know we did our big breadwinner was the LA New York round trip. That was about 80K.
Damn.
It would cost for a round trip flight, and that was for a Hawker 700. That wasn't even like the Cat's Meow, like the Gulfstream. That's so much more.
So Hawker 700, give people an idea how many people fit into a Hawker 700.
I want to say it was like 7. We had 7 seats in the Hawker 700. We could fit 11. I flew a Citation Sovereign. That was 11 seats. They just obviously go up and up. A Global, Gulfstream are kind of like the top range size for private jets. I remember hearing they're Global. They would be doing routes from LA, Van Nuys out to like Australia, and those things were charging like 250, 300K.
Jesus.
To get that jet.
That is crazy stuff. For some reason, all I'm thinking about right now with this private jet, I don't know why, I'm thinking of Tinder swindler. Fuck that guy.
Oh, shit,
right?
yeah.
He's just
having
taking
the girls
private jet everywhere. And we had one of the girls on the podcast.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh,
and the
shit.
episode was nuts when she talked about the details and stuff.
Damn.
Anyway, screw that guy. Stay tuned for the recap, guys, because I do have a couple crazy stories about the private airline industry that Pilot Pete told me. I'll tell him in the recap. But sounds like when you have that clientele, there's a story or two that comes with it. But here's the moment people are definitely waiting for. I don't know. I feel like I've gotten enough. But let's quickly talk about your time on The Bachelor, right?
Yeah.
Because not many people, like I said in your intro, can have a professional job like this. Go on and you had a wild ride.
Yeah.
I mean, banging in the windmill 4 times or however many times. Then you're The Bachelor and you're engaged, you're not engaged, you got a new girl, you went through a fucking whirlwind.
I did.
And you
it wasn't boring,
out,
that's for sure.
It wasn't. It was freaking entertaining, and you came out and you went right back to work.
Yeah.
So tell me.
That probably is the one thing that kept me sane. But
yeah. Well, that's why I wanted to, because I had dealt with that, right? So I don't know if you knew or not. I talk about my book a lot, but I went corporate banker, dealing with the CFOs. I go into this world. I didn't have as many fun stories as you, unfortunately. And then I go back, and there was like a story Caitlin told about a time we hooked up and we were dry humping.
I remember hearing that. Yeah.
And so that story ended up getting me fired. 10 years of working for the bank.
That's
I got
insane,
fired, right? Like that's. But like bullshit, like what? Fully clothed, consensual. She tells a funny story, and it's like it blows up. So with all that stuff, how did that have a negative impact? How did you manage it? How did that all go down?
Man, I look back now, and I'm kind of like, I don't know how the hell I got the time off to go and do this, because I had to get a lot of time off.
How much time was it start to finish?
I mean, going on the Bachelorette, you don't never know for sure, but they said 2 months. You need 2 months that you can give to us.
Sure.
And on Bachelor, the same thing. I knew I would be obviously the full 2 months there.
You rolled right into it, right? Yeah, you rolled.
We had the summer off. We finished like in May, and then started filming in September. So the thing, luckily, that's a long story. I'll kind of keep it brief here, but I had to get a lot of trips covered. I had about 3 months
What do you mean trips covered? Like you had to get hours in?
So like I would get awarded 3 or 4 trips that were put on my schedule like for March through May, right, when I started filming The Bachelorette. And so that was my work schedule. I had 3 trips. It was a 3 or 4 day trip, and there was usually 3 of them in a month.
Wait, you didn't? Sorry to interrupt, but you didn't take off? Like you still had the schedule?
No, I did. That's the thing, and I had to find a way to get those trips covered. There were certain methods I had that were like a vacation drop or a personal drop, and I could get those trips removed from my schedule, and everything was okay.
Got it. Okay.
But I didn't have enough of those tools to cover every single trip.
Gotcha.
So I had to get creative, and I remember this. I don't think I've ever told anyone this. I remember I only had like the first 2 weeks off.
Okay.
For the show. When I first went.
Did you think you were gonna go home?
I was like, you know what? I'm a very big like manifester. I'm like, I don't know how it's gonna happen, but it's gonna happen. Okay. And I was that confident, and maybe people probably think I'm freaking crazy. And listen, if it would have come down to it, the show was awesome, but I always would have taken my job. Sure. I was never gonna quit.
I think, and there's some people I think are full of shit. That is 100% true statement.
100%.
There is no BS in that.
If I would have gotten to those 2 weeks and I didn't have my trip, I'm like, guys, I'm sorry, I can't leave my job. I'm out. But so I did it, and I'm like, it's this crazy opportunity. Obviously, the excitement's there. It's like, wow, like I don't want to say no to this.
Sure.
And so I went with it, and I'm like, but I only have 2 weeks. I got to find a way to keep it going. Luckily, they let me have access. You don't have access to phones or anything. Oh, yeah. They gave me access to an iPad, my work iPad I could bring, so I could constantly be trying to trade these trips out to ensure I could stay there.
Cool.
But they didn't even know. The show didn't know this, that I only had really 2 weeks. I never said anything. And,
so you were taking because we, as everyone knows, it's been around for 25 years. You can't have your phone or TV or whatever on the show. So you would just say you're doing the scheduling. Meanwhile, you really had to find someone to take the
trip. And the stress level that I had.
Oh, that would freak me out. Well, you're already stressed in that mansion. That was a crazy time. So then you had to add that to that.
It was insane.
So when you traded, is there trying to imagine, there's a system you go in and you open up your flight availability and someone can bid on it or take it or something like that?
We have a software that essentially shows all of our schedules. You can kind of see all the open trips. You can see people that are trying to trade trips. And so I was constantly just every day trying to find someone that could take this trip. If there was good enough coverage, meaning that we had enough reserves available, I could just drop the trip, and that was the easiest way to get rid of it. But long story short, I had a lot of finagling to do to get those trips covered and be able to stay. It all worked out. Then I get asked to go do The Bachelor, and I've used all my resources up. I have no more personal days to drop a trip. I have nothing. And I'm like, the only way I can do this is if I get a leave of absence. I have to get this granted to me from Delta. I was at Delta at the time. I have to get this granted to me. I can't, there's nothing else I can do. And so I call my regional chief, who I was close with. He had helped me out with The Bachelorette. And he's like, listen, man, we can try. We can put in the leave of absence, but, there's no guarantee. And most likely they're going to say no because they can't make an exception just for one pilot, which I totally understood, obviously.
Of course.
But I was like, let's try it. Let's submit it. So I submitted it for the 2 months. I told them, obviously at this point they knew I was on the other show. I was like, listen, I'm trying to go on this one. I've been asked to. What are you guys thinking? I would need to leave. It got all the way up to the top, to Ed Bastian, the CEO of Delta. And there was two teams, two sides that were fighting, saying, listen, this is a good press opportunity for Delta. We want to approve this. We think this could help us. And then the other side that was completely against it.
Okay.
And they ended up saying no. Ed says, Mr. Bastian says no. And so it was a no. So I'm like, well, shit. I can't do it. I guess this is not happening. And again, I got really, really serious about some manifestation. And I was like, no, I'm doing it. I'm going to find a way to make this happen. I'm not saying no to this. It's going to happen. And so I made it happen. I literally called, there was 110 FOs, first officers. That's my position as a right seater.
Okay.
110 first officers. At this point, I'm LA based, 737 for Delta. I go down the entire list. I call cold call every single one of them. And I ask them, hey, listen, I have this opportunity, that I need to drop some trips. Would you be willing to help me out and pick up these trips if you had time in your schedule? Obviously they're going to benefit because they're going to make some extra cash too. Out of 110, I think I think 3 people said they'd help out, like they were chill about it.
Only 3?
3 people.
3 of the 100.
I called, and not everyone picked up. You know, I was
Sure.
in voicemails with a couple of them, but only 3 of them said yes. And so I was like, all right, I can work with that. 3 people can, I can make that happen.
You obviously didn't. I mean, I hate to say this, but you obviously didn't tell them you were going to be the Bachelor. Because
No,
if you told
I
me you were going to
couldn't
be the
say.
Bachelor, it would have been 110.
Yeah.
And they all want pictures and stuff.
I didn't say anything about that. But yeah, so I had those 3, and what was nice is like we started filming beginning of September or mid-September, and we filmed through mid-November. So what's nice is I was able to front load my schedule with Delta. I was actually able to still work in September. I put all my trips in the first half, and then for November, and it was super easy because I was junior and people want Thanksgiving off and that's the second half off, so I was able to backload my schedule on November. So I only really had October to worry about to get those trips covered. And I only had like 3 trips given to me, so obviously it worked out. These really cool, great people, pilots were able to pick up my trips, and that's how it happened. And I look back now, and people they don't understand how I got the time off, and I'm almost like I don't get how that actually worked out. Like I'm happy it did. I never in a million years would have actually thought it would have worked out.
So you never, ever even left your job, put a leave of absence, you just the whole time figured out other pilots to take the shift when you were given it.
Yep.
That's what, so did that, I don't know anything about airline industry, a little bit more after this episode, but at some point do they just stop giving you shifts?
No, we're given, unless you have vacation, you are awarded your trip, your schedule, 3 to 4 trips per month if you have a line. And obviously if you don't show up to work and you don't fly these, obviously, there's gonna be repercussions, you'll probably get fired. But as long as that trip's covered, they don't care. It's no skin off the airline's back. As long as a pilot's picking that trip up, can legally pick it up,
they're good.
Not gonna put them over hours, they don't care. It doesn't matter to them.
As long as they check their box.
Exactly.
Did you, in that time from Bachelorette to Bachelor, dude, that's more stressful than the show.
Yeah.
Did you ever, have a moment where your flight wasn't getting picked up? Like there was a last minute, I'm gonna freak the fuck out right now. I need to call my dad and say, Dad, start working for Delta.
I did not ever, no, I probably would have had a panic attack if I ever got that close. I don't know, I've never been that stressed in my entire life just from the freaking show, from production, and being put through that, and no one knew that I had this whole other stressor that I had to be taken care of.
That's
but
crazy.
Luckily, no, I never faced that. I always had them about 2 weeks out. I think that was the closest, maybe a week and a half. And it was picked up and I could breathe again. And I was like, all right, I'm good. But yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Interesting. Good for you to get through manifestation. It works for Pilot Pete. Maybe it works for you guys back home. Just a couple more questions. I'm do it more a little rapid fire just because we're running low on time.
Yeah.
But you've been in podcasting. You've done really well with social media. You've grown your following. You've obviously monetized. And you've been a pilot. So I have 2 questions. Question 1 is, which of the 2 do you think you can make more money with?
So, and we've, you've been obviously so helpful from the beginning, just being a great resource and friend, helping me kind of navigate this space. It's something I didn't know about. And I'll be completely honest. I still think, I'll say pilot, and I'll say just because the long, obviously, this whole influencing world is insane. The quick money that can be made and the amounts that can be made, it's insane. And I wasn't used to it. I don't think anyone really is used to it that comes from just a normal kind of life.
Sure.
And so those numbers you're not necessarily seeing in the airline, and being a pilot so quickly. But I think longevity and having, God willing, I'm going to fly until I'm 65. When they make me leave. And so I have 35 years of a career of consistent salary, of consistent 401k contributions, and everything. We don't have a pension anymore, but they do take care of us with some other retirement stuff. And so I would say for sure, flying. 65.
I don't think Instagram's going to be around anymore. And if it is, I don't think anybody's going to want to see you or myself.
I know,
maybe
right?
you, maybe a lady.
No, I don't know about that.
They won't want to hear us about banging in the window 4 times.
Oh, God.
Washed up,
I hope
down
not.
Viagra.
Holy shit.
All right, now I got to ask you, so I think I already know the answer to this. It's pretty much a layup, but at your peak, when the media thing was, and you still have so much going on, you did the Top Gun stuff, you're getting deals left and right, your following's great, but right off, that show, everyone gets off the show and they think they're like George Clooney and then they have reality hits, some of them not.
Yep.
But when you're at that moment, was there ever a consideration whoa, this media entertainment thing might be my thing not being a pilot? Or was there always certain that you were going to be a pilot?
100%, staying, flying. It was never ever going to leave it. I don't do flying for the money. It's, yes, you can make an incredible living and have a great life and give your family a great life, but it's never been for that. It's just, it's in my blood. It's what I was born to do, made to do. I love it so freaking much. And for me, I kind of just looked at it as, and now I have a really cool, who knows how long it lasts. Obviously, I'd love for it to last my entire career till I'm 65.
Sure.
Probably not going to happen, but I'm just going to kind of run with it and enjoy it, have a good time, try to, set myself up, my future up successfully and my future family. And that's the way I kind of look at it. And that's how I've been approaching it.
The ultimate double dip right there.
Yeah.
One thing I got to ask you before we go, so we got to get your trading secret, by the way. And so trading secret, just so you know, it's like one bit of advice as far as career navigation or financial navigation that someone could learn in a textbook or learn in a classroom. They could only learn from you. Couldn't see on Google, so you'll have to end with that. But before we go there,
specifically with flying,
it could be anything like career advice, flying advice. It could be getting into the industry. It could be managing your money, things you've lost, anything. It's like the trading secret from Pilot Pete that someone couldn't get anywhere else as it relates to those things. Life lessons, career lessons, money lessons. It could be one of the two or one of the three or all of them. Okay. Before we get into that, so I'll let your brain spin a little bit. Bachelor in Paradise, everyone's saying, you're single. Will we see you on Paradise? Will we see you as another Bachelor? Would you even be willing to do it with your career? What is the probability we see you on the Bachelor franchise again at Paradise, or like as a lead, or in some capacity?
So actually this is kind of recent. I was going to do it. I was going to do Paradise.
You were going to do Paradise?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm surprised to hear that.
I was going to do it. I had been talking with a couple of the producers for a couple months, and it was definitely just, I felt like I was in a place where I could go back. I've just kind of been intrigued because it's the one kind of format I didn't try. I think it's maybe the one more organic format. But yeah, I was going to do it. I actually got the time off for work, believe it or not.
My next question is, how would you manage that with work?
I was doing some pre-planning. I had, you bid for vacation, months ago, you bid for vacation for the rest of the year.
Okay.
And so I bid for my entire vacation over June when they were going to start filming. So I got the time off. And so I knew that I was going to have it off. It just came down to contract. We couldn't agree on a contract. So I said no. And I think I'm good putting, I look at it as it was an incredible experience for me, with all the highs, all the lows. I'll take it all, and I'll be very grateful for it. But I am fully ready now to put that behind me, and so yeah, I'm only looking forward. Very grateful for what the show has done for me.
So maybe we'll see Pilot Pete another day, maybe we won't. But it's been awesome seeing you and watching your whole story unfold. And even I think what's even cooler about your whole story is what you're doing now, honestly. It's so sweet. And the fact you get to fly your last flight with your dad.
That was incredible.
And you can make a splash in this industry because of the book you wrote, and maybe kids or people that are having anxiety have more comfort because now they're listening to you because of the show, but now they're understanding how this stuff works. That's all like really, really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll ask you before we go into the trading secret, if someone hears this and they're inspired by it and they're like, wait, I could be a pilot and do something, like what would just step one be? Like where does someone start if they want to think about this industry?
I am biggest cheerleader for anybody right now that has maybe just even the smallest interest in flying. It's truly a job. I feel like it's unlike anything else out there. And if you have any interest, go out to your local airport. Go to this local airport. Ask for where the flight school is. Usually there's going to be at least one there on the property, and ask for an introductory flight. It's maybe $75, $100, maybe up to $150 now, and you'll go up with a CFI, an instructor. They'll take you up for like an hour, and you'll be in the right, or actually you'll probably be in the left seat, and they'll let you just get a feel for the airplane and see if it's something that you actually would you could see yourself doing. And if you kind of feel like you got the bug there, then continue and sign up. Get a private. You don't have to go the whole way and go become an airline pilot and kind of get what we call like the doctorate of aviation, an ATP, which is like the final certification to be able to. You can go get a private pilot's license for 10, 11, 12K, and give yourself, in my opinion, a beautiful gift of freedom that is it's priceless, and you can go get an airplane whenever you want and just go fly and enjoy it. You don't have to do it for obviously for a profession. So if there's any interest, check it out. Give it a
Super
chance.
cool. For a low price, you can try and give it a shot, and like you said, no one can take it from you.
Yeah.
Pilot Pete, this has been awesome to learn more about the industry, your whole career navigation story, what you've done. It's been unreal. You got to leave us with one trading secret, something that someone couldn't find on Google in a textbook or in a classroom, just about career navigation, finance, or life management. Pilot Pete, what do you got for us, brother?
Oh man, let's see here. Trading secret.
No trading secret's a bad one.
Let me think. I would say it's funny. I always kind of say with I don't know. We'll see if this works. But with relationships, I actually think that, and this may be people may like be kind of shocked for me to say this, but I feel like aviation is like being an airline pilot is probably one of the healthiest things you can do for a healthy relationship.
See, I'm surprised you said. I wouldn't think that.
Yeah. And
why?
I've learned just what's kind of cool is in my field is obviously you have a lot of time to talk on a long flight. You have great conversations with the crew, and I've learned so much from so many captains that I've flown with and gotten so much advice, from love advice to finance advice to just whatever kind of advice. But being a pilot is being able to go. I've noticed this in relationships I've had. Being able to get up and go for 3 or 4 days. I believe if you're always with someone kind of 24/7, you can kind of start to butt heads a little bit.
Seriously.
It's not unnatural for a couple 30, 40 years into marriage where you're like, all right, we've been you kind of get on each other's nerves a little bit. I've seen it too with my parents, where you go for a 3 or 4 day break, it keeps that kind of spice just alive a little bit, and you're always super excited to come back and see her or see him, and I've noticed it can be very healthy for relationships if you have. I've always said 2 things: if you have insane trust, and you have a certain level of independence.
Okay.
This is the healthiest job in the world, I would say, for a relationship.
And you could, if you were married, could you potentially have brought your significant other to Tel Aviv? And you could travel together and do stuff like that.
That's one thing I'm really looking forward to.
That's pretty cool. And are you a captain or no?
No, I am a first officer.
All right, first officer, Peter Weber. That's your trading secret. If anyone wants to find more about you or buy your book or listen to your podcast or anything else, where can they find everything? First officer, Peter Weber.
Yes, sir. My roommate Dustin and I, we have our podcast, Bachelors in the City. Just a fun kind of take on our everyday life, and a lot of stuff obviously Bachelorette related. Obviously, Pilot Pete Instagram. I have my children's book, really, really proud of, The Adventures of Pilot Pete. And it's my story of, my first love, aviation, and kind of my story of how I became a pilot and how, everything transpired. And it's meant to hopefully inspire, children, whoever reads it, whether it's flying or not, just to chase those dreams and never give up until you find them. So you get that off my Instagram. I have a link on it, and adventuresofpilotpete.com. And man, it's been a pleasure.
So that book you can get on the link on your website.
Yeah, I have the link on my Instagram.
Okay, and that's where you can order it. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff. We're going to order 5 copies of that. We're going to give it to you guys. Give us 5 stars in the comments. Let us know what you thought of this podcast and any other guests. Put your Instagram handle. We got 5 copies to give away.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much for being here. It was really cool to hear a different side of your story.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, it's been great.